Hi, what is up? Random time on a Tuesday because I am off work on Tuesdays. It's me, Audra, the blue haired liberal your parents always warned you about. I have come to destroy your lives and tell you why I don't want children. No. Hi, hi, hi. I know it's a weird time for everybody who watches it on the replay. Appreciate you. I always love that. Thank you so much for doing so. Let me make sure I have all the things ready the way that I'm supposed to because I always think that I have the things ready and then I don't. So let me go and check because I'm always trying to get everything the way it's supposed to be and then I don't do it. So, all right, got it. We're wavy gravy, and I have that. Boom. All right. Welcome. Hi, Talon. Welcome to being the first one in Children Smell Funny, and you get in trouble for putting them in a cage. Period. Listen, we're going to get into it. So, here, my mother is arguing with Bo downstairs. I'm gonna pretend it's not happening. And look, I'm gonna do this while here. Boom. Uh-oh. Boom. Uh-oh. I love to do sometimes I like to just do it while I'm like here so you can see the difference. Like, oh, is there darkness? Is there color? Is are they wearing white mascara? Yes. I got it from the new Lethal. They sent it in PR and I tried the other colors realized that realistically, because my eyelashes are black, I need to do the white and then do the colors. But then I put the white on. And I was like, I'm killing it, so I'm gonna leave them white. so so today I have a little something fun for you. And just FYI, I would like to give a shout out to all my Black trans folks out there. I know it's been rough, so I hope that you are being safe and careful out there. Free Palestine, and let us get going. First and foremost, I do also want to I say first and foremost, and then I already first and foremost is so second and third most. Thank you to my patrons and channel members without whom I would not be able to continue creating this content. Also, I have all this stuff that I filmed for y'all, and I don't know why I haven't put it up. So, in the next couple of days, you're going to see all this stuff that I filmed, and I just like didn't. I don't know what I listen, from Black Friday on, it's been a blur. So give me a little break. Also, our first movie night of the year, we're going to watch Romeo and Juliet with Claire Danes and Leo DiCaprio. That'll be on Saturday. I don't have a time yet for you. It'll be between 6 and 7ish, 7ish and 8ish. And so it was like between 6 and 8 basically is when we're going to do that movie night because I think that that will be so fun. We'll have a good time. And also, all of these live streams I'm putting into like a podcast format basically. So if you want to just listen to it, you can for all my people who just like listening to stuff like myself. I'm also starting another channel called Audra Listens to Books. So I will be doing live reviews of the books because I think I'm just going to stick with the fact that live format is kind of currently my best format at this point in time. I know that that doesn't make everybody happy, but it makes me happy because of my 9 to 5. So I think all the announcements are out and I'm feeling like I've done the things. All right. So hello to everyone. Hello, all y'all. We're going to do our hellos. And shout out to Irradiated. Ooh, I can't remember the last part of it, but shout out to Irradiated because Irradiated Woman, I think is it. But thank you for putting the timestamp on my last stream on when it actually started. Appreciate you for that. I'm dead serious. I love because I try to do it and then I forget. So I appreciate it when y'all do that for me because, like, listen, sometimes I get off the stream and I just forget about life. Hi, Dark Angel, Lauren, Ava, Manda. Like, hi, y'all. Hi, Super Kitty. Hi, hi, hi. So, all right, Girly Girl and Marcy. I think I said Manda and Emma. Sorry, Emma. I got it. So, y'all, here's the thing. Here's what I'm about to do. I'm about to see if I can share this properly. 3 years ago, I made this video. Still, I think it's like my most viewed video. After that comes like the Manyo Skin Challenge, and I think after that comes some kind of clothing try on. So as you can see, I've always been a creator who does a lot of things. But YouTube doesn't necessarily like it when you try to do a lot of things on one channel. They getting your feelings for it. So like I'm trying to put things in different places so that way people if you don't care about like the thing about Audra listens to books, just as a side note, is that it's all smut. So if smut is going to be upsetting to you, I definitely wouldn't go over there. Fantasy smut. So 3 years ago, I made this video, and at some point, maybe next week, I will be reacting to see if I still have the same opinions, which, you know, I do. I'm pretty sure I do, but I just want to see if I have any additional things to add to it. But I had wanted to make a follow-up video talking about not wanting children. However, in that time frame, my girl Tony Brienne made this video, and I will have this video. I will have all 3 videos linked in the description box below after the stream is over. If you have been watching my streams, you know I do like the thumbnail, all that stuff after the fact. It's just how it works. I like better getting shots of me doing the stream than trying to take some awkward picture being like, so Tony Brienne made this video, The Rise of the F Them Kids movement, which is fabulous if you haven't seen it. And then my friend Abby Williamson recently made this video, Leave Childless People Alone. And I really wanted to talk about these things because I do feel like we have entered into kind of this weird stage where people get in their feelings with regards to people not having children. And for the sake of this conversation, one of the things I'm going to definitely eliminate from this conversation are people who are infertile and cannot have children, not because they're not pertinent to the conversation, but because I think that we are using the worst possible outcome. And then that in turn denies other people their agency. So it's not to say that being infertile means you're not part of the I don't want to have kids. It's that the choice was taken from you. And I know that there are a lot of people that I know who cannot have kids for whatever reason. They don't want to be dragged into this conversation because it's not a choice for them. They so they don't really want to be dragged into a conversation. I feel the same way when you're talking about not having a child you don't want. Using the worst possible scenario just denies the rights of everybody else to be able to enjoy the way that they want to live their lives. So, with that being said, oh my God, Stephen Ford is in here, y'all. I love Stephen. If y'all aren't following them on Instagram, please do so. Please do so. The looks are just beautiful. So I just wanted to say hi, Stephen. Hi, Runaway Shay. How you doing? So the thing is, I'm 43. I do not have kids. I do not regret not having them. I am lucky in that I grew up in Okinawa, Japan, and my mom had a couple friend. Like they were a couple and they were her friends, Joan and Dave. I can say their names because I don't know their last name, so it doesn't matter. And I grew up seeing them as a very happy couple, no children. Zip zilch zero, and they had zero intentions of having kids. They enjoyed being basically like auntie and uncle to everyone else's kids like me. But they did not have their own kids. And so that was something I got to see growing up and seeing like that was possible, because even when I was little, I didn't really like the idea of having kids. And if I played house, like I didn't really want to be mom, but the only reason I would be mom in the game of house is because I just wanted to tell everybody else what to do, not because I wanted to have children. And also, honestly, the game of house, when you play house, like you're just like, yeah, I don't want to do this. But my decision was fully solidified in high school when they decided to show us childbirth. And I was like, yeah, that is not for me. It took one time of seeing it, and I was like, no, absolutely not. I am not the person who's going to do any of that. I saw that, and that was about maybe 16 when I saw it. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that at all. That seems terrible, and I'm uninterested in it. And as I grew older, I just didn't want to do it even more. And I did 2 things I didn't want to do in my life. One of them was I got married, obviously not married now. Thank the goddess, go girl. And the other was he wanted to have kids and I wanted to be a dutiful wife and try to do that. But he was also deep in alcohol addiction. And I just kept taking my birth control at some point because I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to take care of 2 kids. One of them's an adult. So all of that backstory on me to say, I grew up in the 90s. Anybody who grew up in that time frame, like I'm seeing some of y'all in the chat who are just like, I knew I didn't want to marry or have children when I was 4 years old. I feel like it's a lot like understanding you're queer. I feel like not wanting kids is something that you knew just like being queer. Like you knew it young and you were like, yeah, no, yeah. Like I feel like people think that it's just something that comes upon people one day, but growing up in the 90s, like, I knew even then the way that they talked about the world and what was happening, I just felt like wasn't I personally did not want to bring a child into the world, and seeing how things have panned out thus far, I'm so glad I don't have a child in whatever is happening here because the world is messy, right? And I think a lot of us, can definitely say that if we'd had a choice on being born or not, maybe no, but, because I think, maybe not, perhaps perhaps I would have just stayed in the womb where it was comfy and then never escaped, but I think let's see, I'm looking at some of y'all, Emma says 49 this month, and I can count the times on one hand that I have momentarily wavered on my decision not to have kids. Yeah, it I think for a lot of us who didn't want to have children and still don't, I think that a large amount of that waiver is the pressure from society. So there are a lot of societal pressures for women and femmes to have children and for people with uteruses to have kids. I knew I didn't want to because I very much saw like how this was panning out because that's how my brain works and it works on a lot of pattern recognition. And I was just like, if I'm here and I'm a cog in the machine, I don't want to create another child, like another person who has to be a cog in the machine because it's like you are born, you go to school, which is basically a 9 to 5 job. Like it's not about education and hasn't been for a very long time. I don't think it really ever was. It was just really for you to prepare to spend your days toiling for someone else, even if you don't want to be there. So like, I mean, think about it. It's illegal for you to just like not want to go to school. And even now, if you drop out, you have to have like parental consent if you're not of consenting age and be able to show that you're working or whatever, depending on what state you're in. So it's not like you can just be like, I don't want to do this anymore and get out because you have to be a part of society. Right. And so there's all of this pressure and you see how it works. Like I saw like, oh, you have to go to college, you have to get a bunch of debt that you can't really ever get out of unless you're just suddenly mega rich. So you can't get out of your student loan debt, as we're very clearly seeing now. And you're going to have to just keep toiling away at a job you may not enjoy or like. And that also sucks. Like, ugh, I don't regret it to this day. Like, I'm seeing how the world has turned out. I'm thankful that I stayed the course with not wanting to have children. And it's perfectly fine and acceptable to say that you don't like kids. A lot of the conversation around not wanting children really bothers me because I see a lot of people be like, you don't have to want kids, but you don't have to be mean to them. And I'm like, I'm not mean to them. I think y'all conflate the two things. Not liking children doesn't mean I'm mean to them, but it also doesn't mean that because you have children, I'm going to succumb to your children's whims because you do. And like that is a conversation that we're very consistently having. Like I recently saw on, I'm not sure if it was Twitter or TikTok. I feel like it was Twitter, but a woman had a service dog and like, or no, just her dog. And these people had their child, like they just ran up to this kid or the kid just ran up to the dog and were trying to pet it. And she's like, no, 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 don't do that. And then the parents were pissed off that she didn't let their kid pet the dog and said something to the effect of, well, don't have a dog if you don't want kids to pet them, which I'm sorry, what? What are you talking about? I'm 47 and never once had a moment of regret. I'm married with no kids. It's awesome. It really is. Like, here's the thing, too. When I got divorced, one of the things I was so grateful for was that we did not have children, that we did not have nary anything to tie us together. Like, I never, ever, 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 ever have to see that man again. As far as I'm concerned, we were never married. As far as I'm concerned, he does not exist. And like, I don't have to have any ties to him, like nothing. And the idea that people kept saying, like, oh, like Kanye said, 18 years, it's like, no, it's their life, it's their entire life. When you become a parent, it's for their life. It's not just 18 years, it's for the duration of your life and theirs. So you don't get to just like walk away, like they're going to have a wedding. And if you did get divorced from from your spouse, you're going to have to see them there. Like there's all of this stuff that you just don't, I think a lot of people don't put into consideration. Like relationships end, and also nothing made it more clear to me how little people really understood about taking care of their children than lockdown. Y'all, lockdown really showed us how many of these parents were okay with it being in their children's presence for like a little bit, but like not a lot. Right? Because all of a sudden, all these parents were put with their kids for 24/7. And I promise you, a lot of them did not feel the same about being just with their partner 24/7. But when you put the kids in the mix, it was suddenly like, no, they've got to go back to school. You got to take these kids back to school. You've got to get them out of my house. And if you really look at it, a big reason I didn't want to have kids even when I was younger is I was like, this is not a communal society. And that was when I didn't truly understand capitalism, but I did understand community. And it was just like, this is not a communal society that is conducive to having children. My opinion, obviously. Yes, this is so funny. Another YouTuber that I watched just made a vid on the rise of people not wanting kids. They're also very expensive. Like, we can't get away from the fact that having a child is extremely expensive. And the reality behind that, like, when you start talking about things like weddings and the rise of people trying to have weddings that do not have children, and the way that people with children started losing their minds and then having to, like, have all these comments and be like, "Well, the children at my wedding were great." Good for you, babes. That's what you wanted. But the thing is, and this is just my opinion, you do not have to agree. We don't have to type out angry comments. But my opinion is that a lot of people with children view weddings as like this free babysitting situation where they can go and they can, have drinks and have fun. And then everybody else is going to like kind of take care of the kids. And that's a big reason why people don't want your kids there, because they just start running amok and doing whatever. And you just don't care because you're in a safe space. And so, like, I have yet to be at a wedding with children where that hasn't been the case, where they have not been just running amok. I don't want to be responsible for another human being like that. I just don't. I don't want to raise them in a world that isn't kind to people. I don't want to raise them in a world that seems like it's on its last legs right now. I'm not into it. I wasn't into it then. And then in the 90s, we thought it was all going to be over. Like we thought the world was going to end in 2000. That was the only time I enjoyed New Year's Eve. I did a TikTok about it, and that's because I thought the world was gonna end. I had 2 double stacked dolphins, and I'm not gonna explain exactly what that is because I don't wanna get in trouble by YouTube. But I had 2 double stacked dolphins. I was having a nice time, and then, it was the year 2000, and I am unfortunately still here, as are you. And so he said, exactly. So many children in poverty and or need adoption. I couldn't imagine bringing a child into this world. Some see it as selfish, but it's really a carefully thoughtful decision. And Manda, that is a big point that I like to bring is the amount of people that try to tell you that it's selfish to not have children is way too high. And I'm just like, well, you're calling your child a mini me, so I'm not sure what we're talking about. It is selfish. So is having children. Both of the things are selfish. So let's just taking care of them is selfless, but having them and a lot of the reasons that you want to have them is in fact selfish, right? Like I'm selfishly happy that at any point in time, like right now, I'm doing a live stream. And aside from Bo, who is my son, I gave birth to him, that he's a dog, things have changed in the world. That's my son. My mom even will be like, come to grandma. Listen. But like The reality is I carefully thought about it, was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want the responsibility. I wanna be able to get up and go. When I leave the house and Bo is in the house for 4 or 5 hours by himself, like, nobody is calling the police to be like, "Where is your mom?" You know what I mean? Like, that's not a situation that I have. Super Kitty came in and said, "To have a normal nuclear family meant to me a tacit agreement into the status quo. No, thank you." And that's the other thing is I again, this is just like my belief. I don't think people in general were meant to stay coupled up forever. I think that a lot of people are coupled for a period of time, but I think that raising a child in a couple and it just adds a lot of stress for a lot of people that they weren't anticipating. And even people who do it to the most equal way that they possibly can, they will still tell you that it's stressful. They're not going to be like, "Oh no, it's still stressful." There's still a lot of stuff you have to do. I knew for sure that like I needed to keep taking my birth control pills when me and my ex-husband had the conversation about daycare, and I very much was like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna stay home." And he looked at me like I had grown another head and 2 arms. And I was like, "Have you not looked at the cost of daycare? Because daycare is very expensive, and realistically, if my entire check is going to go to daycare to have someone else spend like, raise my child and spend all of the best moments with my child, why would I pay for that? And when I can just be at home?" Like, it doesn't what? This isn't computing. I grew up as a military kid in a single parent household. I definitely did not want my child to grow up to not have a parent that was, like, always there. And, in that regard, I do get the stay-at-home mom, and I beanie off to y'all. I'm not gonna take it off now because of the head, but beanie off to y'all because that's a very good reason to want to be a stay-at-home mom, because I don't think people really understand the pain that these parents experience having to immediately go back to work, basically. You birthed an entire human, and you have to go back to work, and you end up missing some of the most important times of their lives. I also think that, like, maybe some of our depression and sadness and inability to connect has to do with that. That's just a theory because if we're not getting held and, by our parent and loved by our parent the way that they're supposed to be able to do but can't because capitalism, I think that that can create some problems. Obviously, that's just an opinion that I have, and you don't have to have it, and we can again discuss peacefully in the comments below. I have been married 10 years, together 18. We both never wanted children and still don't. We have no regrets. The amount of shit we have gotten for this, it's annoying. It really is. Like, it's the thing about the status quo, the thing about following the norm is that people really have difficulty understanding that there is even another way. And I truly think that a lot of the people who get angry about this and angry about people like Lizette and Girly Girl, whatnot, um, they get angry because it never occurred to them that they didn't have to follow this road. I think that a lot of anger in general with regard to being angry at the childless, angry at dinks, um, is because of the fact that it never occurred to them that they could get married if that's what they wanted, have a long-term partnership, and just, like, not have kids. And now it's being kind of, in some ways, thrust in their faces that, like, you didn't have to make that choice. The amount of TikToks that I have seen of women who have children and people with uteruses who have children who are like, "If I didn't know my kids, I wouldn't want kids." And I'm like, "Ouch, that is not a glowing endorsement." Play MUA. I want nothing to do with children. I'm happy leaving that to someone else who finds pleasure in it. Exactly. And I feel like we should just be able to say that. Like, I should be able to say, I don't want them. I don't like them. Obviously, if they roll up in my general vicinity, I'm going to be polite. I'm not going to be like, ugh. But I should be able to say that. And you should be able to say that kids are the greatest thing that ever happened to you. And we should be able to be like, cool. And just, like, keep living. But, like, your anger is misplaced because it's not my fault that you didn't realize that there was, like, an alternative way of living. So weird to say it's to call living childless as alternative. Oh my god, I'm so far behind in the comments. I wasn't expecting this many of you to show up for this because it's such a random time. Um, I'm the type of person who if asked to hold a baby, I would hold them literally at arm's length. I am so awkward with kids, but especially babies. Babies are the worst. Listen, I when several years ago, I had to babysit my baby cousin. And when I tell you, I did in fact hold him out like a football, like he was gonna throw up like babies do. And I could see it on his face. I just held him out and let him do his thing. I was like, "Eek." And then I cleaned him up and then I was like, we're gonna go to sleep. And that's all I do with babies. If I have to take care of babies, I'm like, we're gonna go to sleep. What is that? Oh, it's my phone. It's AT&T. You can't have me back, babes. Um, I'm like, I already paid all my bills. Leave me alone. Dark Angel says, I've never wanted kids. That is a big reason, the way society is. Plus, I know how I am. I can be selfish and want to do what I want. Not a huge fan of kids either. I love my nieces, but that's it. Yeah, like I have to, first of all, the only time that I can really stomach to spend around kids is when I'm like prepared to do so. Like I have to be in the mindset that I'm gonna spend time with children, right? Like my because I do have young cousins. Um, so I have to have it on my mind, like I'm about to go spend some time with some babies. Okay, so that's number one. Then it usually has to be in the summertime when I haven't been like working the way that I work during the end of the year. It's really, and it usually has to be like a big group activity where they're gonna maybe go play out by themselves, but not be like really by me. I'm not like it's just I'm not a person to listen. I don't enjoy it because like they just I'm not built for that. That is not what I am built for. I am definitely not built for all them children's. Yeah, and, like, that's it. Not only do people need to teach their kids that some dogs bite, and Girly Girl brought up, yeah, what if the dog bites the child, then what? Then that person loses their dog. That's usually what happens, because people can't keep a hold of their kiddos, and I also think that watching the way that people with children very much get irritated if there's any space that's supposed to be child free. Because again, the reason that apartments are the way they are and you can't have like a child free apartment unless you're elderly is because people with children did that. Look it up. I think it was like maybe 1976. I used to know this by heart because I used to be a leasing agent, but that was in my 20s and that was 20 years ago. So let me live. But these people decided that they wanted to live in these apartments and they were child-free apartments. They got pissy about them because they liked them. So now we have a never-ending war between people with children and people without children. And it's literally because like it's not even just, oh, like I don't like kids. It's also like I don't kids are gonna run around and play and I want kids to be able to be kids, but not above me. Right. Like I don't like living on the top floor. Like, I know people do. I don't like it because I usually almost always have a dog. So I do not want to go. One, I don't want to bother the people below me with Bo running amok. And then two, I don't want to have to like go down the 3 flights of stairs to be able to like take him out to walk and stuff. So like it's just, you know, I have always started to get chest pain just thinking about the responsibility of raising a human. Yes. I think public schools are more socialist than capitalist. Like the idea of school, yes, is socialist, but the like what they're learning and the idea that you go, yes, but the hours in which they've spent, even though there have been multiple studies, even since I was a teenager, explaining that these hours are not a good time for these kids to learn because that's not when their brains are ready to absorb information. They still very much are aligned with a 9 to 5, work schedule. It's not even 9 to 5 anymore. It's like 7 to 5, 7 to 4:30, whatever it is now, 8 to 4. Because all the flex schedules these days. But if you really think about that, while parents are working, their kids are also in schools. So like that's why lockdown was so tough because they're like these hours that used to overlap, but you were apart are now overlapping and you're together and you're having to like deal with the realities of raising a child. And I don't mean any disrespect to anybody who has a child, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that especially, like, talk to a stay-at-home mom, because my favorite thing that a lot of, like, working moms do who, not a lot, but some of them don't really understand the definition of feminism, because it really was the right for you to choose which way you wanna go. So looking down your nose at a stay-at-home mom is like, "That's not cute. Stop doing that. That's not cute." The point was for choice. You chose to work, which is great, and then they didn't choose to work, and they're staying home and raising their kids. Both things are awesome. Huh, scissors. Okay, but ask a lot of stay-at-home moms, like, what it's really like spending their entire day taking care of their child and raising their child and having to be there, and then ask them about the stress that hits them when all of their young kids are now in school, and their reality that, like, there are now 8 hours of their day that they don't have anything to do. And then they're like, "Okay, well, maybe I can go back to work." And that used to work way back in the day, but now it's very difficult to do because technology changes, the way that industries work change so rapidly that unless they stay in school and stay in classes and do all this stuff the entire time and keep some kind of like job that they can work from home going as they raise their children, it's very, very difficult for them to get back into the world of working. So that is, yeah. Vision of you said, "I'm open to kids, but I do not want to assign purpose, happiness, solution, or identity centering children." And that's a big thing too. I think that people don't understand that you can be happy. Like, I am happy without children. I'm happy because I've never wanted children. I am happy because, like, now that I'm older, as like I've had so many things happen, being late diagnosed ADHD, not diagnosed, but I knew when I was getting diagnosed for ADHD, I didn't go and get I thought it was autism, but I just didn't wanna mess with it, so I was like, "Let's just deal with the thing I can deal with." I was correct on the ADHD, I did get diagnosed, I did take medicine for a short period of time, and I was like, I don't think I like this." And I'm not tolerant to medication a lot. I'm just not tolerant to the majority of medications. So all of that to say, I also didn't wanna pass on those traits, so we'll get that, but I have careers. I've had multiple careers in my life, and I don't think that if I had children, I would have been able to, like, do the things that I do where I'm like, "Yeah, I'm kinda done doing this, I'm gonna do something new." For me, right? I'm always trying to do a new thing because I enjoy new thing. Dark Angel, cough, cough. So I so wanted to say I told you so. I told you kids were not it during the panini. Yeah, and that was rough. MJ the Great. This is the big point. A village doesn't really exist. People will very consistently say it takes a village to raise a child, and it does, and it did, and there were villages that did so. Y'all are taking from community when we are living in a capitalist individualistic society. So like when your parents were growing up, it was no thing for a neighbor to discipline your child because you were all raising these kids together. Um, Obviously, discipline was different back then, so calm down. But it wasn't a thing for that. It was no thing for a parent to give, snacks to kids. It was no thing for if your mom forgot your lunch, for another parent to get lunch for you. Like this was a normal thing. It was normal for random parents to like around your neighborhood to be making sure that every kid was fed, every kid was clothed, and that's just not how it is now. You have actual parents right now voting against school lunches for children for like everybody to have a school lunch. They're like, well, they should just pay for that. And I'm like, y'all are the same people who want people to have children that they don't want to have, but you don't want to have anything provided for those kids. So it doesn't make any sense to me. You're really out here just like doing things that are at odds with one another. Like everybody should have kids. It's the greatest thing ever. But also if you're poor, fuck you and fuck your kids. Like that's what starts to hurt me. I'm like, "Ow, really? Y'all are wild for that." Um Emma, yes. One of my many reasons was not to pass down my depression, low self-esteem, etcetera. My mom was bipolar and it affected me deeply. And that's another thing, like, once we started to understand, and obviously you don't have to have this opinion, but once we started to understand mental illness and mental health and understand that these genes are passed down, like, I think a lot of people collectively started being like, "I've had a hard time living with this, and I'm really not interested in having my child have this. So, I'm not gonna do that." Valid reason to not have a child. Like, valid reason for you to be like, "I've spent my life in varying forms of depression, and I don't think that I can pass that to somebody." Um, Steven says, "Maybe if an entire generation of people stopped having kids, we will finally just go extinct, and then I can just nap forever." Listen, I mean, they're very worried about this because these rich people don't know who's gonna work their factories, and I call all jobs now factories, even though it's not a factory, but, like, that's what it is because we're all just sitting there staring at computer screens, doing things that don't matter. So, like, and I don't mean it to be, like, mean. I say this about every job I've had. I'm like, "I'm just doing things that don't matter." Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's just stuff. What's baffling is the people who say children make the wedding when someone says they don't want kids at their wedding. Like, buddy, the wedding is about the bride and groom, not your kids. Period. Like, the wedding really is about them. Like, I listen, I just think that it's okay for people to not like kids. If you like kids and you want kids to be at stuff, great. But allow other people to have their moments. Like, people have barbecues and gatherings where they're like, no children allowed, and people like lose their minds over it and then expect everyone to agree. And I'm like, well, have y'all ever considered that the reason that they're not allowing children isn't just because they don't like them, but also because, like, they're trying to have an adult time where they don't have to worry about what they're saying? So, like, I don't like to be around kids because I curse a lot, and I don't wanna have to consistently try to be like, "Fudge sickles," instead of saying "fuck." Like, can I not say it? Yes, yes. But is it more difficult when you're like, "Oh, the kid has arrived suddenly, and they're at my side?" Not to mention the disparity of medical treatment for Black birthing persons. We have the highest rate of death during childbirth. That part, because they still think that we have a higher tolerance for pain, and we don't. We don't. And parents don't want to parent all the time, which is why we need the actual community back, because the point was that you would be able to, like, trade off, have, like, date nights, and all of these things existed. But now people don't really wanna pay for a babysitter, so they just keep taking their children everywhere. And I live in Texas, I live in the South, so I'm telling you from the perspective of living in a place where I very consistently see this, like, where I will be at a very upscale restaurant, not because, like, anyways, we special moments, my mother and I will do them, but you'll be at a very upscale restaurant and just be looking and trying to figure out what possessed these people to bring their 5-year-old and their 3-year-old into a restaurant. My mom is losing it watching John Wick. I don't know if y'all can hear her, but she is watching John Wick 4. And listen, my mom is an avid movie watcher and gets very excited. But the way in which you're like looking, and I'm like, the average plate is at least $30 to $35. So I'm so concerned. Like, why did you bring your children here? Like, they try, like, this is the thing. Restaurants do this all the time where they're trying to price out parents, but they can't just say, like, you can't have kids in here unless it's only a bar. Yeah. No one under 15 should be allowed at weddings. It should be a rite of passage like a quinceañera. Yeah. Because, like, here's the thing that I don't think that a lot of people think about is, like, children really aren't comfortable wearing clothes at all for a long period of time. I feel like it takes them to get to about, like, 5 where they're not fighting you to, like, get them into clothes, okay? Up until that point, they're just trying to be as nude as possible. Like, little kids are just notorious for, like, nudity. They get in the house, tearing everything off. So, like, the last thing they wanna do is, like, wear an uncomfortable outfit. You put them in an uncomfortable outfit and expect them to behave? I think not. Hi, Roman. I'm watching this live and I forgot it's live, so I was excited to see I can comment. What is up? I do that all the time. I do that all the time. I think we are now more aware of intergenerational trauma as well. It takes so much to just keep myself regulated. Exactly. I mean, we are still currently having a conversation on whether or not physical punishment is okay for a child. Newsflash, it's not okay. Because again, that's saying that you as an adult cannot regulate your emotions around a child. And that doesn't say a lot for you because, again, as an adult, I would not just hit another adult because they didn't understand what I was saying, right? Like, just generally, if someone talks back to me, my first thought isn't, let me smack some sense into them. I mean, it is, but I don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the difference. So we're still arguing over that. And people are like, well, sometimes, and then those same people will be like, well, you don't have children, you don't know. And I'm like, okay, but I'm just telling you, like, we don't do this as adults. And then you'll teach that same child that it's not okay to hit. It's okay for you to hit them, but it's not okay for them to hit anybody else. Do y'all not see that that's weird? Yes, actively taking care of children is selfless, but not everyone is taking care of their children. And I don't blame it's so hard now. Like I I will be fully honest, it's very difficult I think to take care of children now. You have social media on one hand, you have schools that are trying to teach you about like the active shooter drills. When I was growing up, did we have bomb threat drills like yeah, someone always didn't want to do their homework, and we were very much aware that that's what was happening. Like, even in 3rd grade, I knew that there wasn't a bomb at the high school. Somebody just didn't wanna take their test, okay? And they would call in a threat. Not a good idea, but that was I feel like before it was fully criminalized, but anyways, it should have always been, but, like, I was on a military base, it was wild time, let me live. Um, but yeah, I think that we just don't it's so hard for parents to have kids today. It's very difficult. Even if you're like, "Oh, I don't let my kids do XYZ on the internet, like blah, blah, blah." Guess what? Your kids have friends. They go over to their friends' houses. They experience all of this internet stuff that you don't let them experience. Um, it's just gonna be like that. There's nothing that you can do about that because your other option is to basically isolate your child, which a lot of really creepy people do, and then they're weird and they grow up strange. I'm gonna try to be nice about it. I always wanted a child, but the man was always optional for me. And that's something that I had thought about was, like, adopting a child, but then I realized, like, Audra, you and I both know. Like, let me put it to you this way, when Beau wants to cuddle me unexpectedly, like, I do get frustrated, but then I'm like, "Aw, this is awesome." But the other day, I feel like right before Christmas I had a certified package that needed a signature, and I go up to the person's door, and when the door opens, gorgeous little girl comes right out, gives me a hug. First of all, I'm not a hugger. I don't really like to touch. Um, should have been another indication of my ASD, but let that pass. I don't like to touch. I don't like to hug. It feels uncomfortable. It makes my skin feel weird. And I feel like even if you touch me through clothes, I really need a shower. So like it just feels like it's sinking into my clothing and your physical print is just like getting into and you're ruining my DNA. I know it's weird. Leave me alone. But so I'm just standing there with this kid who's just like full of love and care and wants to hug me. And I'm just like, please stop touching me. And I'm trying to be nice the whole time, trying to be nice, just getting the things out and I even look at them and I'm just like, "Wow, she's friendly." And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Get her off." Like, I don't know what else to do. Many of the reasons I have for having children are pretty selfish. Yeah, I think that just generally, like, having children and not having children, the reasons for both are going to be selfish. The raising of the child is the selfless part. I also think that a lot of people don't understand that raising children means that you are raising an entire human being to be their own human being, not a carbon copy of you, not what you want, not all of the things that you think that they should live by, whether it be religion, music, whatever it is. They should be able to make those choices because you are there to guide, but not like force. And that's going to be a problem for a lot of people. They just don't understand that. And that's why you see parents who don't have any contact with their kids as soon as they got out of the house because you decided that your way was the way and you didn't care what they needed. Yeah, Roman is correct. Adoption is also a cruel system to go through. A lot of people suggest adopting kids instead of having your own without understanding how awful adoption systems can be. 100,000% because you are, in fact, buying a child. That is not controversial. That is the truth. You are buying a child. So there's literally not a way around that. You are paying money to have a child. There's no nice way around that entire conversation. You are quite literally paying money to have a child. That's it. I know people want to be like, but you're giving them a home, like all the buts and the if and the main, you are buying a child. At the end of the day, you paid to have a child. And adoption is not nice and neat. And a lot of people want a baby only. They do not want to adopt, a 2-year old or a 3-year old or a 6-year old or a 7-year old. So that's, because they want to be able to pass off this child as theirs, which is really weird, but you live your life. Um, they, these kids all around the world are not subjected to the best of conditions. It's just not a good system. It's not a good system at all. As someone who would love to have kids, but will probably never have them, I am glad to find people who do not want kids and are nice and kind about it. I will come to terms with it also. Yeah, like, I think that again, that's one of the reasons why I very clearly at the beginning of this was like, I'm not bringing in people who can't have children into the conversation because that's not the space where they want to be and that's not where they belong. Like they are their own entity and they are dealing with an unimaginable pain because it's completely different when you don't get a choice, right? It's if you don't want something, even if you don't want something, because here's a fun fact, I also cannot have kids. I didn't want them, but then when I found out I couldn't have them, it was still a weird death because I didn't want children, but there's also like an added layer of weirdness when it's like, "Oh, you just can't." And you're like, "Well, I like having the choice, but also it's weird that like I don't have it anymore." Both things are true. I'm still super glad I can't, and I'm very thankful that I microwaved all my cup of noodles in the styrofoam cup because I'm sure that that was the problem. Yay. Ooh, wait, Tanya. Okay, hold on. Tanya said, "I'm 55 and childless. I always thought having children was something you did in the 70s." Yeah, it really was. Listen, I my favorite thing is running into childless people with uteruses that are in their 50s and their 60s because they have the best stories. They have lived some of the most interesting, wild lives. Like, and the thing is, the way that they have lived, it's offhand when they tell you these things. They will say these things like offhandedly. And I know this, like I do it too, but they will just say the things offhand because it was just like a normal everyday thing to them. They're like, "Oh yeah, I was backstage at such and such." And like, "Oh my God, let me just tell you, this guy's not as hot as you think. It was the makeup." And you're like, "Did you just tell me that you were backstage with like Sebastian Bach?" Like, and you just act like it wasn't a big deal. Like, they just act like that's just normal shit to do. You're like, wait, what? Amethyst says, my mom had me with a man, my father, that she knew she couldn't provide anything for her. And she admits that without realizing how stupid it sounds. Really just tells me that she just wanted a baby so bad. Yeah. And like, that's the thing too, is like, it really bothers me that women who or people with uteruses, excuse me, who've had children and the fathers are deadbeats, the way that so many men will combat that by saying, y'all need to make better choices. But I feel like the weird conversation around that is that people wear different hats and different fake masks to trick you into believing that they're a person that they're not. And by the time you find out who they really are, it's too late. You're knocked up because they did that on purpose as well. But but yeah, every day I am so thankful. Like during the pandemic, and it's still going on, but during the lockdown, I was so glad that I didn't have a child at that point in time because I was like, I couldn't imagine spending all this time with them. Every time that I decide that like this job isn't for me and I need to figure out what I need to do next, and I just have time to just sit and think about it, like I don't have another mouth to worry about aside from Bo Bear, but his food, it's not particularly expensive. I think it's like $75 a month and then toys as needed, you know? Like take him on walks and have a good time and snuggle him and hold him, but like that's it. Um, I agree on the coupling thing. I think to this day, people are still stuck on the get educated, go work, meet someone, move in, get married, 2 and a half kids. Yeah. And people learning now that like, no, you can get together and you can just both not have kids. You can go on vacations. You can take whatever because like watching late stage capitalism as it stands right now, where it's almost impossible for people to even afford a one-bedroom apartment. And even if you were to split a place to live, you're still paying a lot of money. I can't imagine trying to bring kids to that. We're living in a world right now where people can't even imagine being able to buy a home. So, like, how are you supposed to do all of these things? Like, if you're making the choice because of financial reasons, that's still a valid choice. And you should feel free to say that to people when you're like, yeah, I'm not having kids because we don't have the money for that. You should feel free to say that because I think people forget some key points about what it was like decades ago. Like decades ago, obviously this was left over from the dowry system, but weddings were paid for by the bride's family. Like it, then it moved to, somewhere in the '80s, it was like we could either pay for college or your wedding, and for some reason, some people still were like, "Pay for the wedding. Are you okay?" How did that work out for y'all? If any of you did that, let me know. And then it's moved to, like, your parents can't afford to do either of those things. They can't pay for your wedding, they can't pay for your college, you just take on this crippling debt, and no, it's too expensive. Ooh, my dad once tried on the old "Who will look after you when you're old?" I shut him right down with, "The same people who look after the dying patients I look after even though they have kids." That part. I do not think people like, the amount of people who work in nursing homes who have to keep telling people like, "Yeah, no, their families do not come visit them. They, like, stuff them here and forget them." And also, those same people also talk about how, like, the little old ladies who don't have any kids, they have so many random visitors, and they're like, "We can't really explain it to you, but they have all these people in the neighborhood that they've helped and cared for and taken care of who go see them and go hang out." Yeah, our society wants women to have kids, but does not provide the support or resources. And that's a big part of it for me as well. There's not resources. And I knew that going in. I was like, there's not going to be resources for me. There's not going to be anybody trying to help me to raise this child. I very much grew up with my mom being like, if you get pregnant as a teenager, like I already had my kid, that is you. You will have to take care of this. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And that was another thing that had me like, yeah, no. I would see because back then, the OG MUAs, y'all, were the girlies who got pregnant in high school. I promise you that. Like, if some of y'all don't remember that, but the OG MUAs were the girlies, the hairstylists and the MUAs, OG, the girls who got pregnant in high school. That's who it was. Okay. That's who got, because like that was the only thing that they could really do back then. Back then. Don't come get mad at me because I'm just telling you how it used to be. But that's who they would. Beauty school dropout was quite accurate. I gotta break it to y'all. The worst people besides the ones that call you out for not having kids are the ones who give you crap for not having a second kid. Oh my gosh, yes. Because they're like, won't your child be lonely? I'm an only child. And let me tell you, I mean, obviously I'm neurodivergent, so that might change a few things, but I had the best times with myself. Okay. Me, the dolls, although to this day, I'm still sorry to my black Raggedy Ann. Sorry I cut off your leg. Sorry I amputated you. I was a surgeon, but obviously not skilled. I could not put your leg back on. RIP. I used to want to be a doctor when I was a kid. Now we found out why I didn't do it. That in the school. Yeah. Ooh, okay. Not gonna lie, I'm a working mom and can afford daycare. I'm pretty happy paying others to watch my kid with other kids. They're doing an awesome job and deserve every penny. Hell yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that like both things are like it's all still valid. It's all for real still valid. I think for me, I wanted to like be home with them because of how I grew up. So I wanted to make sure for my, obviously you're trying not to repeat like history. So like that was my deal. Only people who really want kids to share and not control them should have kids. Yeah. Kids are not an extension of you. They didn't pick you or ask to be here. And that's the biggest thing is I think that way too many parents do that. And will judge other parents, being like, "Oh, you're letting them, identify as non-binary." Yes, because the biggest mistakes you make is like not allowing a child to express themselves however they need to. They will, like, grow into their own person regardless, but, like, you need to let them grow into the person. Also, I really hate kids on the internet, and I really want y'all to stop doing that, please. It gives me so much fear. Like, I see them, I'm like, "They're so cute," but one of the things I really try to do and or try not to do is I very much try not to share any kid content because I don't wanna contribute to. We saw what happened with 8 passengers, which should really have been 6 passengers and 2 adults. Should have been the show, but neither here nor there. But we just keep seeing it happen. So please stop putting your kids on the internet. Thank you. Kathy, I love these conversations. I chose to have a kid, and it was a very, very intentional and thought out decision. Unfortunately, that level of intentionality is not a given. Yeah, I think that for a lot of people, it was like we're pregnant, and then they just went on about it, which, by the way, y'all aren't pregnant, you are. They're just, like, with you. Please stop using "we," it's really upsetting. Y'all are seeing Sambo in the background doing his thing. I'm way behind on comments. I'm gonna scroll all the way down here because y'all are like, "Wow, wow, I didn't realize so many of y'all had." RIP Raggedy Ann. Marcy says, "2 of my kids are neurodivergent and there is no support available. Any resources are kept quiet in small communities." Yeah. And that's another really difficult thing is just like raising children to me was something I knew I wasn't going to be good at. I do not have that kind of capacity. I don't have that kind of love in my heart for a child. I know somebody be like, "You don't know until." No, I know. I know that. I'm aware of that. I have so much love for, like, animals and pets, and I love Bo Bear. I snuggle him and I cuddle him. I do not have that kind of patience or love for a child. I just don't. And it no, don't I hate that people will be like, "It's different when you have your child," because we've seen on multiple occasions through deadly women, need I say more? In on the news all the time, parents who just drop their kids off at the fire station. Like, I can't be the parent who and I was aware, like, I was like, that would probably be me. I would probably be the parent who's like, "Yeah, I'm not into this. Here you go." And I just knew immediately as soon as I saw childbirth, I was like, "That's not for me. I do not wanna grow a parasite in my body." For all intents and purposes, it kinda is a parasite, but, like, it's still a human being, but, like, it acts as a parasite. So, no hate to y'all who had them. But it does. It sucks up all your resources, and then it comes out, and then you have all these weird after effects that I'm really not about. As soon as I started learning about all the after effects, because like, honestly, I didn't know most of it. One of the things I did learn was that everybody shits on the table, which I was just like, "Oh gosh." I mean, I know you probably don't care in that moment while you're trying to push an entire human being out of your but, not an experience I wanted to have. And then they're like, "Oh, yeah, then you have to give birth to the placenta." I'm sorry, what? You mean it doesn't all come out as, like, one sack? This is hot garbage. And then they're like, "Yeah, then afterwards, like, you everything down there can becomes one. It becomes a 2 becomes 1 situation." Not everybody, but for a lot of people it does. They have to sew you back up. Nope, not for me. I'm good, thank you. As soon as I started the more that I started to learn about all the things that happen after you give birth, I was like, "Babes, what?" And all the things that happen while you're pregnant? Like, listen, when they start talking about, like, how some people lose their hair, their feet get bigger, they lose tooth density and sometimes lose teeth. Let me tell y'all a secret. Whenever I get sick, when I tell you my whole body gets sick, I mean it. My teeth turn yellow when I'm sick, and some of them get loose. Then as soon as I'm better, all my teeth are like back to normal. They're back to their whiteness, like they're no longer loose. Like my body is doing its normal things. It's not like secreting weird stuff. That was probably more information than you need to know about me, but here we are. When I started learning about that with a pregnant, I'm like, oh my God. And the thing that the way that people you have more than one? Like, if I even did, it would be like after the one, I'd be like, yeah, that's not no, 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 no. I just saw somebody pop in and I haven't seen red. Oh, yes, this is my kind of chat for sure. I really can't stand children. I hate being a parent for so many reasons, for every reason. Yeah, and I think it's weird that people who have children would want someone who doesn't want children to have children. And I really think that we need to evaluate how we view love because the way that people are like, you won't know love until you have children is such a weird thing to say because I'm just like, so you didn't love your partner? You so like there was no love in your life until you had a child. That's what y'all are saying. It's weird. Like that is the phrase and it doesn't make sense. Love is love. So like, ugh. MJ, I expected you to say that. Birthing a baby is metal AF, traumatic and not for the faint of heart. Yeah, I'm pretty metal, but like I don't feel like black metal is my thing sometimes. Like it's a once in a while experience. I don't think I could handle because it really is a metal, like the most metal experience you could have. Like, your whole body is just doing things, and then afterwards, it's like, it's just all eh your organs are rearranged in your body. Did y'all know that? Like, your organs get rearranged in there, quite literally, like, everything shifts around, and then it all has to shift back. Like, you have to sit here waiting for everything to just boop, bop, beep, bop, get back in its places. It's a Tetris system in there. Not for me. Um, I remember when I gave birth, they wanted to place her on my chest, and I said no because she was dirty. The doc and nurse were so confused. I was like, "That's my insides on her. Please clean her off." I love that for you. I live for that. That is the most awesome thing I've heard someone say about having a child. Like, no, clean that baby up. Like, please do not just hand me this child and expect that I'm gonna have a good time. Uh, and I like this as well from Cameron. I also am sure I couldn't give a baby the affection they would need to thrive. I don't want to commit to a kid if I didn't know I could give them the best life possible. And that's the thing. Like, again, for me, the affection needs to be there. I didn't think I would have that. And financially, I'm one of those people that for me personally, I do not want I knew then and I know now I did not want to bring a child into the world that had to worry about finances. I can't do it. I had a lot of time in my life where I had to grow up worrying about whether or not my mom could afford this or that. Obviously, things have changed, but when I was younger, it was difficult. And I don't think enough people think about that. I don't think enough people think about the financial involvement in having a child because every year it gets more expensive. And I'm not just talking about like um technology and like getting cell phones and iPads. I'm quite literally talking about like when I was a kid, getting scouted in sports was done at your high school. Now you have to be in one of them special teams that play on weekends and whatnot. It's not happening in your high school the way it used to. Now you have to do all these team sports that are outside, and that stuff is an arm and a leg, from what I've heard. So expensive. And don't think that you're going to get off easy by doing golf, because guess what? Golf is super expensive. Golf is a ridiculously expensive sport. Like sports that people don't think are expensive are super expensive. Golf is so expensive. My sis had to have a C-section, and the fact that they take your guts out to yeah, I didn't know that they took like all of this out and then get the baby out and then put it back in. Baby, the more I find out, I'm just like, and they don't tell people this, and I think that this has contributed to more and more people being like, "I did not know all of this stuff, and I don't know that I wanna do that," and I think that that's good. I think that having like, being informed and having all the information is very helpful to making a decision, and I think that they kept this information for people with uteruses so that they would not be able to make an informed decision as to whether or not they wanted to have children. I'm gonna end this by saying, like, I do think because Bo's gotta eat because it's time for him to have his food, and he's gonna, lose his shit in about 10 minutes if I don't do it. But I'm gonna end this by saying, like, if you have children, you love children, and it's great for you, I'm happy for you. But also remember that there are those of us like don't start all that bullshit with us. Don't start like you should try or da da da. Don't keep trying to make people hold your baby if they don't want to. Leave us alone. If we don't like children and we don't want to have children, or sometimes we like children but we don't want to have children, let us live our lives just like we're letting you live yours. And we don't have a choice because your kids are quite literally everywhere. So we don't have a choice. Your kids are where we want to be. Children, they're everywhere you want to be. I mean that in the funniest, but also truest possible way. All right, y'all. Normally I have a longer stream than this, but I have to work tomorrow. I might pop up on Twitch later, but I got to do dinner for me and Bo. So thank y'all for chilling. If you made it this far in the replay, hop into the comment section and type out boogity boo, and that'll be a fun time. I know normally I'm just like, but everybody doesn't have an emoji, so boogity boo. All right, y'all. Until next time, I am so pretty, and so are you.